Have you ever experienced anything weird here before?
I'm really looking forward to our time here together.
Okay, so thank you ever so much today for Josh Ruben joining us. Today I have a co-host as well, another person who I've borrowed from for the love of horror, but instead of Neil this time, I have Ben. So say hi to everyone, Ben.
Hi.
Seem to have frozen on my screen, but hopefully you're okay there. So I'm Janine Pike, and this is for Horror DNA, and we are joined by Josh to talk about two films which have just landed on Shudder. So if we start by talking a little bit about A Wounded Fawn, which just dropped in the UK about a week ago or so. And first of all, it is absolutely fantastic. Both Ben and I absolutely loved it. So
thank you.
Huge congrats, and obviously to Travis on that. It is an absolutely amazing film, and I'm glad I went in not 100% blind, not as blind as with Barbarian, but almost. I wasn't quite sure what to expect, and yeah, it was absolutely amazing. So first off, how did you get involved with that? And I've also put, is it as out there on paper when you read the script as it was when you actually made the feature?
That's a great question. Well, I got involved because Travis Stevens, the co-writer and director, he actually Twitter DM'd me asking if I was still interested in performing now that I've, embarked on my filmmaking days and career. And I said, absolutely. And you never know what you're going to read. And I read a lot of what I read, especially pitches to direct, is quite derivative stuff we've all kind of seen before. The Barbarians of the world and Bodies, Bodies, Bodies and Nopes of the world are, such auteur kind of incepted projects. They're rare to come as an ODA or open directing assignment to someone like me. But I read the script, and it was for that very reason that it did read as quite, out there, but certainly it was quite beautiful. The prose was all there. A lot of the visuals were quite there, and he assisted that send with a visual deck that sort of articulated he'd be doing a lot of the practical effects in camera. So I knew that going into it, and that's a great deal of what charged me to say yes, just knowing that it was going to be a kind of Rami Jalloh homage.
Yes. Oh, well, definitely. Yeah.
Sorry, what really appealed to me is I completely avoided the trailers, any kind of marketing. I just went straight in. I wasn't expecting it to look the way it did, that 70s lurid colour, the bright red, like Argento Romero blood. Like, yeah. As a director yourself, were you looking at that with a bit of, not envy, but like sort of, man, this is cool? Or what was your take on that, acting as a director?
The first time I saw the film, Travis was generous enough to ask me to come to the color sessions at Photochem in Los Angeles. And I sort of said, no, I want my first experience of it to be at the film festival. We debuted at Tribeca 2022. And when you see that, it's one experience to sort of be in the room looking at all of Eric Bergen's incredible wardrobe, or Dan Martin's prosthetic eye and wounds and blood and everything. But to see the story play out with Val's score, the composition alone, and then the 16 millimeter stock, that's where you kind of go, okay, this is actually going to have quite a long life. Beyond the messaging of it all, beyond the feminist vengeance element, that's where it really kind of hit me. It was beyond envy. It was just a pride. I was so proud of it. And continue to be so proud to be a part of it. I consider myself extremely lucky to have had an event in our community every year really since Scare Me came out, since my first film came out, to if I'm not making a film, that I get to be in something and produce something. It's such a privilege. It's not lost on me. I'm just preparing myself for the inevitable, like, one year you will not be as relevant and oversaturated in our market, which I think it's time to pump the brakes a bit anyway. But I just was so prideful and am.
It is. It is definitely. It harkens back to, as we said, like the Jellos and everything. It pays homage to all of that, whilst being incredibly relevant as well. So and the fact that it's shot on 16mm. I mean, it doesn't look grainy or anything like that. It's just beautiful. You can see every single thing that went into it. Every single person that was involved in it brought that A game, and it shows. So I can totally understand that sense of pride of watching something like that and thinking, shit, I was part of that, and it's going to blow up and be amazing.
I agree, and I'm really excited for the. I think it's now within 6 months where it will hit VOD, and where the masses who don't have Shudder, which is still very much a niche platform, albeit a very popular one. I'm really thrilled to see what happens when it sort of opens up in that degree, both Blood Relatives and Wounded Fawn, but both for very different reasons, for the fact that their lives are going to be long for various reasons. And I don't know, the luck again is never lost on me, especially just seeing reactions to your art every day on social media, just in conversation.
You have very good taste in art.
Well, thank you. Do you work for a gallery or a private collector?
I have plans this weekend.
The mystery.
Yeah.
Mystery man.
That's right.
What mystery man?
I brought that record I was telling you about.
Oh, great. To art and beauty.
And the night ahead.
I think Travis is he's definitely making a big name for himself as well within the genre.
Yeah. He's so stellar. I already told him, I said, I'm in the family, like, you can't get me out. I want you all under 5 for you. I'll PA, whatever you want.
That's amazing. Did you study any mannerisms or personalities of real serial killers like Bundy, Dahmer, Gacy, those kind of people? Or did you just go with your gut and Travis's direction?
I went more with the latter, so more with gut and direction. That the acting challenge was twofold for me. The first of which was, this is a predator who is armed with seduction, or his poison, his lure is seduction. And as someone who's played a comedian or been a comedian or worked in comedy for so many years, it's not quite natural for me to like play seductive, especially as like a shorter gentleman who works out on occasion. So the acting challenge was a bit of, how do I dig into what it's like to play seductive but not get caught trying to do something that feels unnatural to me as Josh, which is a really, really interesting, again, challenge as someone who's used to playing kind of broad characters and the like. And then the other facet of it was to hone in on what the mask element of it was. Clearly, this guy is behind a mask in a way that, that's allegorical to the entire film. But Bruce's mask is behind the narcissistic peacocking of the stuff that he has and owns and uses to create this kind of self-aggrandized narrative of his life, which, plays all the way through his demise. Not to give anything away. Maybe there's no demise. So to find and hone in on what that mask was, an over-articulation of certain words, or a taking care of prose, how he spoke and being mindful of how he spoke, versus those quiet moments when he was alone. That stuff's so exciting to me because it's what I love seeing in other actors and other films when characters are alone, even dating all the way back to acting school with George Morrison and Mike Nichols, who was one of my instructors back in the Angels in America days. When you can play and see an actor playing alone, they get the specificity of being alone. There's nothing quite like it. It's sort of the ultimate acting challenge. And I got to do, kind of all sides of it. And that's before the intimidation and terrorizing and being terrorized piece of it. So it's cool to peel back the layers on all of it.
Oh, definitely, because they say, don't know, that part of the art of acting is reacting. So when you're on your own in those situations, like you say, when you're just playing yourself, that's you've really got to work hard at doing that. And you were creepy as fuck, so well done.
Thank you very much. And so just to quickly speak to the reacting of it, when you have in-camera practical effects, that's one thing. You're actually reacting to,
Yes.
this spectral sheet fabric actually being flown 50 feet in the air by wind machines and the like. But also to have a partner like Sarah Lynn, who is listening with every fiber of her being. We were really listening to each other. And so me playing intimidating, to get to see her react to that and to get to see her pushing back, that was really, that's the ultimate experience. You can't ask for anything more exciting.
To sort of follow on from that, it's obviously quite a small cast, and as a lot of it is just you and Sarah. And as I was watching it, I actually texted Janine, paused it halfway through. I was thinking, it was reminding me of being in university doing drama and the Greek mask work and played like Medea. And then the second act is in that direction. So how much of that did Travis talk to you about, and the themes? And obviously, was it things you'd studied yourself years ago with the Greek mask work and reacting to people whose face you maybe can't see? Because I'm thinking specifically of the scene in the woods.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that he let us in on kind of the full tableau of it. And he was so open if we had questions about the allegory of it all, but so much of it was in the script. And so much of our conversation when I got to, Princeton, New Jersey to begin the shooting process was sitting down with he and Sarah and just reading our scenes. And then a lot of him asking us what we think about the dynamic and how we might play this and that, a little bit about backstory. So I think as artists and as filmmakers and as, people, as adult performers who can come in armed with X questions, none of my questions or inquiries, especially on the fast-paced indie film of it all, I didn't get quite involved with the allegory and theme even. It was just so on the page. It was sort of, despite the complexity of it, it was not blunt and not self-explanatory, but in a way it kind of was, just, which is a testament to the writing as well. It's such a sort of artful and complex story, and yet so clean, as a lot of studio executives are saying. It's like pretty straightforward. So yeah, a lot of what I was focused on, kind of knowing and not quite needing to inquire about everything else, or not, I don't want to say not being interested, but just simply not inquiring, was all, what can I do to help tell this story? That was what my goal was. That was the time. That was about all the time I had.
How many days did you have on set?
It was, I want to say something like 28, which is wild for a smaller film like this. We did, Scare Me in 12 and Werewolves, I think, in 23. And so to be able to do this.
12?
Yeah, 12. I thought it was 13. My cinematographer the other day was like, we did it in 12, right? Because we lost all this time with blizzards and all that kind of stuff. So it felt sort of luxurious in a way. And the majority of the Fawn schedule was overnights. So we all became kind of vampires, waking up at noon, in bed 4 o'clock in the morning, and, coffee at weird times and everything. But it was such a, oh my God, the whole just experience of it, being in Princeton, New Jersey, East Coast, as we're heading into fall, is where I want to say we shot through Halloween, or at least close to it. There was really nothing like it.
So that was true night scenes. You didn't do day for night scenes and things like that?
Not many. No, I believe we did not. No.
Yeah. You were vampires then for a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to talk about, so spoiler alert, people. We have to talk about that scene, the end credits.
Sorry, Mia Goth.
Yeah, sorry. Pearl has been taken over by this, I'm afraid. So yeah, just tell us about it. What was that like?
A lot of people ask me, you know, was I uncomfortable writhing around on the stone and the wet ground and in the cold and everything? And ostensibly, you know, it could be considered that way, but it was so electrifying to be asked to take that sequence in one film cartridge in one 11-minute take, essentially. So there's some actually of that footage on the editing room floor. It was exciting because it harkened back to all of our theater experiences and backgrounds.
Yeah.
It was a thrill. Travis said, what if we do this? And we all, by that point, especially since it was the second to last day of shooting, were fully on board with that wasn't the least crazy thing we'd done by that point. So we said, yeah, well.
Oh, did you shoot it chronologically mainly then?
I want to say we did. The first day of shooting was in the car, so not quite chronologically. What was great about that was the scene is, you know, when Bruce and Meredith are kind of getting to know each other, and that was in essence Sarah and I getting to know each other. You know, we're so intimately in that car. The DP's in the back seat, we're rotating. Shot, and I'm really driving this thing that didn't have power steering, you know, this old Mercedes, and going over the GW bridge again and again, and it was hot, so we were getting to know each other really well, and I'm super grateful for that. It was very smart on Travis's planning part.
It's almost like he's done it before.
Yeah, he certainly has. Yeah.
Maybe we should just go back to the city.
What do you mean?
We can still spend the weekend together. We just do it at one of our apartments.
No, Meredith. We just got here. I just cooked you an entire meal that you barely touched, and I really don't feel like driving back to the city. Let's just relax, have another glass of wine, and enjoy.
Okay, I can't.
We're fine.
I can't.
It's fine.
No, it's not.
It was just a bat. A bat hit the window, okay? It's an old cabin, okay? We're in the woods. We're completely alone out here.
Yeah, no, I know. That's the problem.
Ben,
Right.
did you have any more about A Wounded Fawn?
Yes, only a little bit like the whole, as you've been talking about earlier, the giallo tone and the look of it and the musical style. Is it something that you liked yourself anyway? And is it something that influenced you, or was it just a trick being part of it? What was your feel of that?
It was a trip being a part of it. I'm more of a Raimi background guy than a Giallo Fulci, Dando guy. Although I think my intro to it was Argento who did Phenomena, aka Creepers, with Jennifer Connelly.
Yeah.
That was the one I think that stuck with me as a kid for many reasons. There's the killer monkey and bugs and psychic energy and all kinds of good stuff. So I was less a fan and less a student of that era of genre film. It was Hammer horror films, mainly the Christopher Lee Dracula films, that color palette, especially that orange red blood palette, that sort of was exciting to kind of see and be a part of, and the Raimi type filmmaking techniques. I mean, the stove puppeteering scene, like that is so 100% my
That's
shit.
awesome.
Yeah, and it's like we're so you know just as well as I do, we're so over inundated with the derivative to see something fresh. I think that's why I think too both of these films, but especially one that leans more into horror with Wounded Fawn. We want that fresh take, fresh imagery, something that sort of shakes up the entire filmography of what we typically will pop in every season or anytime we want to get spooked.
You've done vampires, which we'll talk about in a minute. You've done your werewolves. Are there any other creatures that you would really like to embrace from, you know, the Universal monsters? And would you want to be a writer and director on that, or an actor, or a bit of both?
Does Darkman count as a Universal monster? Because it is a Universal property.
It does, but we all know.
I know you want a traditional.
Famous for Darkman, something else.
Well, I would love to. I'm a big lover of aquatic horror. I would love to see a modern day, but not crazy over budget CGI mess of a Black Lagoon story. I do have a concept for a pretty intimate, almost let the right one in sized idea for a tale like that I think would be really, really fun and beautiful. But that would be my first swing, I think, if I could take a swing. And then as an actor, I think in that context, at least for the story I have in my head, I probably would just be a filmmaker. Ideally, I'd write and direct it the way Winnell took his swing with Invisible Man. I mean, what a better North Star. There's kind of no better North Star for a Universal monster take. Winnell is just such a hero of mine.
Oh, definitely. Have you met him?
I haven't met him, no, but I remember the day he followed me on Twitter, and my brains blew out of my ears.
Oh, I love that. I love that, you know, that because obviously to people like myself as a very, very, very bottom level indie filmmaker, so people like you blow my mind, you know, and so I love that you've still got those people for you as well, which are like, it's like Damien Leone's just shown, you know, Terrifier and Terrifier 2 with Kevin Smith, and he was, you know, saying about how much, you know, Kevin's a hero of his, and yet Damien for a lot of us is a hero for us. It's just really nice that there are still those levels.
Yeah, that's this wonderful thing about the horror community. I got in just by Scare Me, which is sort of in a way not quite entirely a horror movie, but an homage to them in a way. And just to see how embracing and how quickly the horror community recognizes you, accepts you almost no matter what skill level even you are, you're sort of immediately welcome. And just how championing to that degree, regardless of the level. That's just what's been so beautiful about it. And the fact that you're on the same level suddenly as everybody else. From Blumhouse will recognize you, but also, you know, Damien's whole operation will recognize you, and you can kind of, you know, meet buds everywhere in between. It's really cool.
It is. It really is. It's wonderful. Okay, moving on to your other feature, which is on Shudder at the moment, Blood Relatives.
She's definitely yours.
What the hell am I supposed to do?
Be a person.
I'm not a person.
I don't have anyone. There's no one there.
What do you think this is? You think that I've got someplace that I can take you? Like the Bat Cave?
You're feeling a little conflicted. You can imagine how I feel. As a vampire who was also a teenager.
Find something that you and the kid connect on. Something you could do together.
Maybe we could go on a little trip.
Seeing a family member can be very therapeutic.
Just give me a taste.
This whole thing was a mistake.
What do you want from me?
Everything!
I don't have anything!
I'm not mad. I'm
disappointed.
Impressed.
How did you become a part of that one?
Noah Segan, the writer, director, was a test audience member on Werewolves on my second film. And it was in the middle of the pandemic, and there's this function on Zoom when you can kind of spy on the panel, you know, so I'm taking notes, seeing what everybody's, you know, sort of noting about Werewolves. And I noticed Noah because I've seen him in, you know, many a movie, including Looper. My God, I loved him as Kid Blue, especially. That's my favorite Noah role. So we got to talking. I followed up with him after the fact. I thanked him effusively. We got on the phone, and he had seen Scare Me, and he said, you know, I have my Scare Me. I have my triple threat feature, the one I wrote and I want to direct and star in. Can you help me produce it? And I said, absolutely. And from that point, we were off and running.
That's cool.
That is cool.
Yeah. And then the cameo is just kind of, icing on the cake. I actually got to Taylor, Texas when we were shooting, and he said, hey, if you want to play the Renfield character, and I stopped him right there. And I was like, well, yes, absolutely. Obviously, I want a cameo. So it was fun at that point. Noah's in 99.9% of the scenes. So to be able to give him a break as a producer and have him just like take off the leather jacket and just direct, that was special.
Is that your first producing role?
As a feature film, well, actually, as a feature film producer, technically no, because I did produce Scare Me. And prior to that, and in between Scare Me and Blood Relatives, I produced plenty of short films and still am to this day. The next one of which is called The Knowing by my friend Aaron. I love it. So I keep that muscle certainly flexing. But yeah, it was pretty wonderful to have the opportunity to actually, go to a location and be the guy at monitor with the coffee, kind of stressing out on behalf of our director. It was exciting.
Is it hard to take a different, I was going to say a backseat, but a different approach when I was going to ask you, with someone else's project, are you ever tempted to just, well, I'll do it like this, or is it collaborative, or are you it
has to be. Yeah, that's a great question. It by nature of the size of the film, I mean, really, it doesn't matter what the size of the film. As a producer, you're going to have to be collaborative to some degree, because at some point either producer has money or this or the other thing. There's political reasons. In this instance, I would not have signed on and committed to, essentially doing this as a favor, as a passion. If I didn't believe in it and I didn't want to participate really on the level where we saw eye to eye. We both knew we wanted to make a kind of Amblin-esque sort of Paper Moon genre film that had heart. And it was interesting to fight on behalf of Noah in regards to pulling back on gore or leaving out the horror element. He didn't want to lean too heavily on the vampire stuff because we couldn't compete with the likes of Let the Right One In and 30 Days of Night. It was more, let's see what we can do in the world of how can we make a vampire Paper Moon, Ganja and Hess, et cetera, et cetera.
That's interesting. So it was a conscious decision of Noah's not to, to kind of keep it PG-13 rather than going for the whole gore thing.
Yeah, I think that's in essence why Shudder sort of went for it. It's like, let's take a swing, especially someone like Sam Zimmerman and Emily Gatto, who are just wonderful. They sort of said, hey, let's put a family film on Shudder and see how it does. And so here we have something now that I think will be canonized by certainly by young girls, I believe, and families wanting to introduce their young kids or say early adolescent children to the genre. And it's amazing that they took that swing. The one mandate we had from Sam was, when you do your gore, when you do have blood, please don't be shy about the blood. And we went, oh yeah, that's just a funny thing we've been finding about genre lovers. And I think also why Wounded Fawn is just kind of skyrocketing in its own right. People love blood. Who would have thought?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. So it could be, this generation's gateway horror, like The Gate was for so many of us back in like the 80s, 90s kind of thing. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
It's something we're missing these days. There isn't as much gateway horror anymore. Like as you said, the 80s, the ambulance stuff, everything was tinged with horror, even if it wasn't a fully fledged horror film. Like Spielberg dropped it in, and maybe it was just of the time.
Yeah.
An 80s thing.
I think the issue with, just to speak to the gateway of it all, is that, back then, they were real stakes for kids. I think this is why Stranger Things has hit so hard, is it harkens back to that 80s era, because the stakes were quite real. It was life or death. And I think there were probably in between that time, that heyday of film we lost a bit of that that risk taking where we really put kids or saw kids in danger the way that these days my big note in films is like, don't put any dogs in danger. Now it's like, put as many kids as you want to, but there have been some great gateway projects, like Ghost House put out a project called Night Books. I thought was really, really good. I loved Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. I mean, Andre, I think is
awesome. Yeah.
An incredible filmmaker. The fact that they got the Autopsy of Jane Doe filmmaker to do a kind of, I wouldn't even call it a gateway horror. It's pretty just outright intense. But for Blood Relatives, it's something that's a little more PG leaning even, and that was really nice to be a part of, especially as someone who grew up on all the films we're talking about, but also the likes of Amazing Stories and stuff that might even be a pinch softer than that.
What's your favorite coffee?
Oh my gosh, an oat milk latte, extra hot. But in the summertime, it's got to be a cold brew, bit of oat milk, maybe a bit of agave, no big deal.
Very specific.
You got to be. Have you heard a coffee order in California? Oh my God. Yes, extra hot, true. Oat milk, matcha latte, touch of such and such, 48 degrees.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite film that you've seen this year that you think that we should all be watching?
Well, yes. There is a phenomenal film that I saw in 2022, but it's going to be a 2023 release, so keep an eye out for it. It's called Sick, and it was directed by John Hyams, who did Alone, that's currently on Netflix, a great stalker film with Mark Menchaca. The actress lead's name escapes me. She's phenomenal. So Sick is written by Kevin Williamson, and it's under his Outer Banks banner, and it truly harkens back to the original Scream. Brutal kills, fun, funny, fast. And John Hyams has such a grasp over action. Especially with his work in the Universal Soldier franchise. Apparently his take was really, really rad. So keep an eye out for Sick. It's got an incredible cast. I can't remember the last time I shouted at the screen. Just as a horror fan, you're so kind of nulled by everything, and I thought that one was just incredible. But this year, I particularly liked Bodies. I just thought that was just an amazing ensemble piece. Lena Raine, she's a fantastic director. There's a lot of comedians in that film, especially Rachel Sennett, who really can act and really can pull the tears and pull the terror, and that just as a comic-minded person myself, or someone from comedy, that really, really hits for me. I'm a big fan of anytime you can see a comedian go dramatic, as you know.
Yes, very much so. And then finally from me, we'll see if Ben's got any more. Which directors would you really like to work with in the future?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to continue working for Travis, because it's going to be visionary. Karin Kusama, I love The Invitation. I'm super bummed that her Blumhouse Vampire Project didn't work out, but I think she's so incredible. And there's a couple of short films I've seen that I just loved, including one, I want to say it's called Portrait of God, from a filmmaker named Dylan Clark, and another from Ryan Valdez called We Got a Dog. They're both terrifying. Those are fantastic directors to look out for. They're in their 20s, I think. They're super young. And then, oh gosh, there's one that just escaped me. I think to be able to work for someone like Lena Raine with a theater background, but with such a grasp on horror and genre would be really, really an honor. But I like working with any director. I can learn from all of them, and then hopefully take and archive some of the skills and roll it into my next thing.
Definitely.
Steal from them.
Yeah, that must be really interesting, actually, as you say, from that point of view, where with doing it yourself, there's all these things that you can put into your own features. So that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. Ben, did you have any other questions that you wanted to ask?
Sort of leads directly into what is your next thing? If it's, you know, if you're going to take things for your next thing, what is your next thing?
Sure. Well, real quick, I was trying to remember who, Kate Dolan, who did You're Not My Mother. I think Kate is so great. And my wife and I got to meet her in California. Anyway, I would love to work with Kate.
Put that out there.
Too many to name. Yes, I will absolutely manifesting. She's just such a great person. Next project, I am working on a horror comedy with Michael Kennedy, who wrote Freaky for Blumhouse. Yeah.
I love Freaky so much, and I love Michael.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Love Michael. He's so brilliant and funny as hell.
Is. Oh my God, I'm excited.
Yeah. I think you guys will like. I'm really thrilled for it. There's a few things that are sort of floating around. The real thing that I know has a date and will come out early 2023 is I have a graphic novel called Darla that will be hopefully hitting bookstores, and maybe we'll do some in-person signings and the like through Invader Comics. Yeah, but that's illustrated by Brianna Tippett, who's a genius.
That's amazing. And can you give us what's the log line for it?
It's about an irritable small town woman who, after a factory accident, isolates at home and begins fantasizing a creature that tells her to do sort of wicked things in her house. But it's sort of funny and twisted, and there's a